Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our learning lunch. Thank you very much for joining us in the room and also around the world. I'm very excited to bring this important session with Mike Erickson, CEO and founder of AFMS, Global Carrier Pricing Experts. The cost of logistics is rising, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard that throughout the conference so far, and those rates are set to stay. So saving every penny counts. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mike, who's going to talk to you about the best negotiating techniques, strategies to optimize your costs and get the best deals. Over to you, Mike.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot, everybody. What an exciting time we're in today. We all feel it, and see it, and live it every day the last few years with COVID. Transportation pricing contracts are no different than other problems you're seeing in logistics as well. But the current state of transportation is best summed up in one word. I think we can all agree, chaos. That's really what's happening out there at all levels of transportation. Transportation costs have skyrocketed the last 2 years at unprecedented levels. Capacity constraints have exacerbated the situation. Driver shortages, increased labor costs, and an important one that people don't realize, waivers of delivery guarantees and service levels. Almost all the carriers have waived their service levels, so you're not getting the reliability you used to get, besides all the other problems. More looming rate increases. FedEx and UPS just a week or two ago just announced new rates for 22. No surprise, some of the biggest rate increases in the history of parcel deliveries are going into effect in January. If you haven't seen it, look into the media, the press releases, or we can give you a copy of what FedEx and UPS announced, but major increases are coming, not only for peak season, November, December, but January of 22. Who would have imagined double-digit rate increases with the major carriers just a couple years ago? Usually it's 3.9 to 4.9 consistently. Big changes have happened due to COVID. And I think the carriers are really taking advantage of this in a way that's unprecedented. You see ocean container rates going from $2,500 to $10,000 a container now. Crazy. But then you look at what's going on behind the scenes, the financial reports. You see all these rate increases with FedEx and UPS, and you see FedEx and UPS record profits, record numbers, revenue, unbelievable profits that are going on. Last quarter they announced, last year at the end of the year, record profits at all levels within FedEx and UPS, both supply chain and in the normal business, day-to-day business there. But the big question with all these things going on in your minds is what can be done? How can we mitigate or lower these large rate increases or reduce our shipping costs in this environment we're in? Today I'm going to give you some pretty good answers. We all work for UPS and FedEx and DHL, XPO, YRC, Old Dominion. All the employees at AFMS spent 20, 30 years working for the carriers. And a lot of us have got a lot of inside knowledge of working in the pricing department, senior levels of sales. So we got some insights that'll be hopefully something you'll be able to take home with you and maybe go back and help mitigate some of these rate increases we're talking about today. But the big question that we got to tell people is you must really rethink your strategies. And you say, well, that sounds pretty simple about how you do it. But the carriers today have done a good job at running, most companies do a good job at running their traditional RFPs. We heard people today saying, and yesterday, that we send out our bids to all the carriers, we do multiple rounds of negotiations. What more can you do? Well, there's a lot more you can do. And I'm going to tell you some of those answers here. So, but we think you must rethink your strategies. The contracts today are pretty complicated at all levels. If you look at a FedEx or UPS contract, they're 40 to 60 pages, a lot of gotchas, termination clause, penalties if you don't hit the certain volumes, increased rates based on tiers and revenues. Very complicated contracts. A lot of people go into this not knowing the details behind a contract, and they negotiate a contract that in turn hurts them. So what we're going to do today is there's also been some significant changes. This is probably the biggest one, and it hasn't been published or really talked about much. But FedEx and UPS led, they changed for the first time in 20 years. UPS went out and changed the commission structure for the sales team globally. Now you think about what does that have to do with everything? Well, UPS used to have volume, which is package count, and revenue that drove your commissions. You got commissions on both for international and domestic. What they did this year, the new president of UPS, Carol Tomei, came in from Home Depot. She was their former chief financial officer, a board member at UPS, and she got the reins here last year. One of the first things they did as COVID kicked in is we're going to change our sales structure, the commission structure. Now, what does this do? It puts you in a worse situation because they're raising your rates, and now the commission structures are based on margins. Margins. I'm sorry about that. Turn this off here. So the margins, profits, is what driving commissions. 1/3 of a UPS or FedEx sales commission is built around your commissions. Pretty big number for a sales rep. So they're going to be fighting harder now to combat you going back and saying, hey, I need better discounts, because they know if they give it to you and their margins drop, they're not going to get their commissions. So not only do you got these rate increases and higher and price increases and things, new policies and money back guarantees are waived, but now you got a sales team out there globally that's more incented to keep the rates higher and don't let you fight for those things. So you got some things going on against you that are really hurting you. A lot of people don't know that. That's new in 21. So what we're trying to do today is, we've all, like I said, we all work for UPS and FedEx. I'm going to show you a couple other things here, but in our years at UPS and FedEx, we're in Europe, we're in Canada, we got folks in China. We've been around 30 years. We've got a lot of team members that, just like, where's Tammy at? Tammy back there just left UPS last week. Her first week training is right here at the show. 35 years, Senior Director of Enterprise Sales. Tammy's here. Brad over here was the Senior Vice President of DHL. Brad, raise your hand. Brad spent 17 years at DHL before joining AFMS, Global Sales Vice President. So we put this presentation together to help you bring some things home that'll help you combat all these changes that we're hearing. This is a little history about our company here. Some of our clients, a lot of auto companies. So we see a lot of great contracts, a lot of poor contracts. You can see up there from the FCAs and Nissans, Toyotas, Volvo. We've helped a lot of these companies in the past negotiate their contracts, help them get best-in-class shipping rates at all levels, from parcel, LTL, air freight, all those. So we help some of the biggest companies in the world with their strategies, redeveloping strategies, figuring out where to focus on their negotiations and how to save money. So all these companies are clients of ours at AFMS. Here's some of our team, as you can see. I mentioned Brad and some of the other folks, but you can see, like on the UPS ones here, over here, you can see Roy just joined us last year. 30 years as a senior pricing director at UPS. Dan was a national account pricing director in Atlanta for UPS. Andrew's in the back here. Andrew Smith, former director of sales for UPS, right there at the podium. Brad up here, senior vice president, like I said. People over in Europe, the TNT folks, people from SEVA, executive VPs, UPI's vice president, Old Dominion. We've got a great team of experts that really know this stuff. And what they said over and over is people aren't negotiating the right way. That traditional RFP is not going to work with what's going on with all the price changes, rate increases, COVID, capacity, commission structure changes. You got to do more of a fact-based negotiation strategy. And what do I mean by that? We're going to show with you how you can really change the way you negotiate and maybe make it more successful. But one thing you need to know also is what's happened. FedEx, UPS, DHL, a lot of the major carriers, 3 years ago, and the last 10, 20 years ago, 75% of all their packages were B2B. What's the most profitable packages for FedEx and UPS and DHL? B2B, the commercial deliveries, multiple boxes. If you go into a hospital, you deliver boxes, you got 10, 15 boxes at the receiving door. You go to a Ford plant, you drop it off, or a Honda plant, you drop it off hundreds of boxes. Very easy, simple pickups. It's different than a home delivery, where it used to be 75% of all packages were commercial. What do you think they are the last 2 years? Complete flip. 25% of the volumes that FedEx UPS handle are commercial. 75% is now residential e-commerce. People have got used to shipping from home, a lot of changes, and as are those patterns going to change? Maybe, maybe not, but that's what's filling up the trucks and the trailers, is all the residential shipments that have flipped FedEx and UPS's system. That says a lot. I mean, there are hundreds of millions of packages every year. To say it's gone from a 75% commercial B2B to 25%. So what does that do for you? Think about it. You're the most profitable business UPS and FedEx has. So when you go to negotiate, you got to think about all these things. How the commission structures change, how it's going to affect you. Number two, UPS is chomping at the bit to keep their good B2B business. The auto dealers, the tier one suppliers are that customer. We're helping a lot of the companies I mentioned up there negotiate their deals. And so you got to go back to the carriers and present a fact-based strategy like, hey, my business is, I deliver 25 boxes per stop, not one. We're going to these stops consistently over and over. We're not trying to find a home out in the middle of nowhere, residential delivery. All the facts that go along with supporting why you deserve better rates. You create a fact-based negotiation, and that's just the start of it. But you got to understand the negatives and positives to where the market is today with FedEx and UPS. They're getting inundated with residential packages. More people are continuing to ship that way. So what I'd like to do is share with you the things that we are going to do. And this is even more true now than ever. Parcel pricing is intentionally confusing. We all work for the carriers, FedEx and UPS. We give you a 50-page contract, fine print. You need a magnifying glass to even read it. All kinds of gotchas. And if you're not careful, you're going to sign an agreement that's going to hurt you 2 years, 3 years down the road. They want long-term contracts. So in this environment, I'd be careful about signing a long-term contract unless you get everything you want in the agreement. So also you need to understand FedEx and UPS have got real creative contract policies. Up here you'll see like FedEx has got called base discounts. They give discounts off those. Those are your overnight, your 2-day, your ground, the normal box. You get a discount off that if you've got a contract that has the right discounts. And they vary between 20, 30, all the way to 70, 80% discounts. No one gets the same discounts. I don't know of any shipper in the auto industry, OEMs, that have the exact same contracts. They're completely different. They may be the same volume, the same kind of products, everything. You would think they'd all get the same contract. We see all the contracts, most of them, they're completely different. Some people do a better job negotiating than others. A lot of people leave things on the table. A lot of them is here, like even tier-based discounts, earned rebates, deferred rebates, all these things, UPS and FedEx have got different type of contracts. So you got to figure out, hey, what contract's best for you in the environment we're in today? Don't just take the contract they give you as gospel as to what everybody gets. They're all different. I don't see the same things on every contract. Claims buyback, for instance, if you get a lot of damaged boxes and you folks have to file the refunds, get the claims, go through that process, they actually will let you go through and get a rebate from them every quarter based on the number of damages and a percent of what the losses were. So you don't have to have your teams out there doing those negotiations, to filing the refunds and the claims. So they'll give you a rebate based on damages. Same with money-back guarantees. Although they've waived them right now, they've waived all money-back guarantees for ground and some of the other stuff. But what you need to do is get a rebate. Say, listen, I don't have time to check every package. If you're not hitting 97% on time or 98% time, I want everything less than that back in a refund quarterly. You can keep track of it, what the on-time performance is by using an auditor or have them do it. So these are some things that most people don't know are out there in the contracts that are worth millions of dollars to large shippers. These two right here. Both FedEx and UPS do that, by the way. This is, again, a little snapshot of where we are today. Like I mentioned earlier, margin-focused duopoly. I don't look at DHL as in the US duopoly, but they're a global player, so is TNT, but they're all focused on margins. Sales commission structure now represents that. Every price increases, capacity issues, complex contracts, higher shipping costs. We're in a tough situation, okay? Like I said before, traditional RFPs aren't the right way to do it. Now look at this. Look at the rate increases. Before DHL left the market, it used to be like 2.3 or 4. Now they're at consistently 5s, 5.8. They all match each other, UPS and FedEx. You know what FedEx announced 2 weeks ago? Sort of misleading. 2 weeks ago, public announcement, we're raising rates in January 5.9% for all weights, all zones. Now on the surface, that doesn't sound like, okay, that's probably justifiable, but that's not the details, or the devil's in the details. The 1 to 5 boxes, 1 to 5 pound, the 6 to 10, and 11 to 20 are getting rates between 6 and 9%. So they tell you 5.9, but a lot of you don't ship 145 pound boxes going to zone 8. So they do an average of all weights, all zones, and they say it's 5.9. But where do they hit you the most? The 1 to 20 pounders, where you ship parts, all the kinds of stuff. So this is a big change. They just announced 5.9 on average, but it's a lot worse. There's some other changes going on. They've changed zip codes. Now, like, well, how does this play into here? Where are your plants? Where are your warehouses? They're changing zip codes. There's 41,000 zip codes in the US. They're not all treated the same. An example here, there are 24,000 zip codes in the US by UPS and FedEx that if you're going to a commercial residential and it's 24,000 of the 41, if you go to that, they're saying those zip codes, even just outside of New York, outside of LA County, you think not too far. This is not South Dakota or eastern Montana. This is right in around major cities. If you're going to certain zip codes, and you can get the zip codes from the carriers, they're now going to charge you new $430 and $310 for commercial on top of what your normal base charge is. So if you're paying $875 for a ground package, you're now going to be paying $310 for every box going to 24,000 zip codes in the US. The good thing is, this is negotiable. You don't have to pay that. A lot of people don't know that. When we represent a lot of the auto companies, I'm getting great discounts off that, so you don't have to pay, maybe pay 50 cents. But a lot of people don't know that. So you got to know what you should negotiate. That's a huge deal right there. So then they got 8,000 zip codes that are more remote, and they're doubling the price. So if you are shipping to Montana and Idaho and parts of Kansas, now they're charging you $590 and $370 for those zip codes. So they only leaves you 9,000 zip codes, they don't penalize you. That's maybe downtown New York, downtown Cincinnati, downtown Detroit. So only 9,000 zip codes of the 41 don't get an extra charge. This is for FedEx and UPS everywhere in the United States. Interesting. Okay, here's some changes that have happened this year. A lot of people don't know this here. And if you're in the auto industry, you guys should pay attention to this. If you're in charge of or involved with the pricing, look over here to your right. In the last 5 years, look at these increases. They've been sneaking up on everybody. 20% a year, 15%, 30%. These are accessorials, not base rates. These are on top of your base rates with UPS and FedEx. I talked about the DAS charges here. Those are those things right there. Here's the fun ones. Scary, actually. Look at these increases. 142%, 7%, 142%. If you're in the auto industry and you ship a little bit of a fender, a hood, or a windshield, or a bumper, or a muffler component, or anything that's even larger than even a golf bag for that matter, you ship in the old days, 3 or 4 years ago, you didn't get this overmax charge. The carriers have rolled out this new charge, and now it's right here, large package surcharge. It's called like a non-conveyable. So when we work with Honda and some of the other auto companies, you see all these, what they call ugly freight. They're now dinging you a lot just to handle that. That's negotiable though. A lot of people don't know that. And they're spending millions every year. So you got to keep an eye on this here. Look at this. 5 years ago, $110. Today, $920. 5 years. This is a chart representing that. UPS is overmax and FedEx is chart. 7 years ago, it was $57. Now it's $920. The last couple of years, 19, 20, 21, huge increases. And the auto industry should pay attention to this because this impacts you probably more than any sector in FedEx and UPS. But the good thing is, this is negotiable. I don't like to see this here. 1,600% increase since 2013. They're telling you we don't want that freight. And if you give it to us, we're going to penalize you. But large companies like you can put clauses in your agreement that says, I want this waived, I want half off, 30% off. So you got to look at your contracts and see if this is already called out as a waiver or a concession on it. Here's an example of what's happened with all these accessorials. If you ship a ground to 1 pound going from Detroit to Chicago, zone 2, 250 miles, costs you right now $876 today, 2021. If it's going to residential, they add this onto it. If it's going to the DAS charge, like I told you, it's an extra $430. Fuel surcharges, your surcharges were $1024. The actual freight was $876. There's a lot of things you could add to this. These are pretty basic ones. So there's a lot of these gotchas that add up to your freight. Your freight's almost doubled based on accessorials. So when you think about negotiating with FedEx and UPS, you see all these rate increases and changes. You want to pay attention to what does the pricing department in Atlanta, the big pricing box, that they lock it in. They don't let people bug them. They're the pricing decision makers. They look at weights of your boxes, zones, size of your dimensions, and this is a tough one for the auto industry. I'm going to give you some ideas on how to save money there. They do zip codes delivered like we talked about, all these things here. Are you a new account, old account, total revenue on the account? Do you get FedEx LTL? Do you get FedEx your customs brokers? All that stuff adds up and helps you get better discounts. So you look at all of these here. And by the way, if you want this presentation, I'll send it to you. Anybody listening? UPS is listening, or FedEx, can't give it to you. But if you guys want it, our booth's right out here in the corner, right around here. Just come by, give me your card, and we'll send you this electronically so you don't have to write all the notes. Okay, so what can you do? One, you need to analyze your data. First thing you gotta do is get your hands on all your data the last year or two. All your accessorials, your every shipment, the weights, the dimensions. UPS and FedEx store all your data in a data vault, and they give you a login and a password. Whether you ship 10 boxes a day or 10,000 a day, every FedEx and UPS and DHL customer has what we call a billing file. And you can go pull up all your data from all your accounts globally. You get this right at these websites here. I'll give this to you. You pull your data. That's the most important thing. What you want to do with it, you want to create a report like this. It breaks down by ground, next day, 2 day, 3 day. You want to know what your average weights are so you can look at the increases for one. And how big of an increase am I getting? My average weights are 5.6. Maybe yours is 20. Well, then you got to look at what those increases are. Here we break them down by all the weights so you can see where the increases are really going to be impacting you for upcoming. And you can maybe negotiate some of those rate increases. Put some rate caps in place. Don't take the 8, 9, 10%. Tell them I want a 4% rate cap. We got some good benchmarking for you here. So this is what we do for our clients is we get your data, we create this report, and we look at it and says, hey, where's all the good things? Okay, where's all the positives to your business? One, you're B2B, a lot of multiple boxes. It's dense, heavier freight than pillows and things. So we create the perfect opportunity for going back to the carriers and renegotiating. So you want to look at even by your ground residential, ground commercial, how many shipments are zone 2, zone 8, all of that. You look at, this is an important one though. After you're done with that, you look at the accessorials. And you want to say, okay, what discounts am I getting now for fuel surcharge? I'm getting 10%. Maybe you should be getting 15, 30, 40%. So you got to look at what your discount is. In your contract with FedEx and UPS, they have an entire 20 pages on accessorials. And they tell you what your discount is. And if it's not mentioned, that means you're not getting a discount. So you want to make sure when you do your study, you pull up how many shipments am I doing each month right here. So the study we do is we say, okay, before we look at what the pricing is, how many boxes are you shipping in these accessorials? Fuel surcharge, 3 million shipments got dinged. Okay, then you find your top 20 and you go back, what discounts am I getting and where should I be? Maybe it's 10, 25, maybe it's 50, it should be 100% waiver, complete waiver. So you want to look at this. This is half of your spend when it comes to FedEx and UPS. So a lot of people don't pay attention to this, and this is half your spend, okay? So what we like to do next, and this is the hardest part, how do you get benchmarking? How can you get some intel? The FedEx and UPS reps aren't going to tell you, do you have a good deal? You know what they're going to tell you? You have the best deal in Michigan. No one has a better deal than you guys in the state of Michigan. You are the best contract. You can't go to another auto dealer and check, hey, is your rates better than mine? They don't let you do that. They don't let you do it at all. On ocean freight, you can use someone like a Drury and do some benchmarking, see what the market is. There is no benchmarking except someone like us. We have 3,000 clients, all the customers. We sort of know what the trends are, what's going on with the market. Here's an example of what we do for some clients. We'll just say, hey, shippers that spend 100 million or 10 million, 9 million, 12 million, 5 million, 7 million, and it all may be in the same, like maybe retail. Maybe it's automotive. What discounts are people getting out there in the market? Including the accessorials, your fuel surcharge. You can see the differences here. Some people get 5 or 0, some get 20, all very similar sized companies. Your contracts, I've seen a lot of the auto company contracts and OEMs and auto parts stores, they're all over the board. There's amazing, say you all spend $50 million a year. They're all different. And so what we like to do is compare your rates, get your contracts, and you should do this. Every one of you should do this. Get your contracts, compare them to the average. Now what we do is we take all these averages of all these maybe auto companies. This is their average for everybody. Where are you? Well, you're 4% below the average, and so you just go right down the list here. You want to be at least average or best in class, between average and best in class. So best in class pricing would be 60. Some of the average people are getting 55, or some people are getting in the 40s. You need to do this before you ever negotiate. When I said fact-based negotiation early off, this is where it starts. Get the details. Find out how many accessorials you have, which ones are being discounted, get the facts, before you ever sit down and do an RFP. Too many people do a traditional RFP, you send it out, it comes back with these answers like, hey, we're giving you 40%, 50. They're not giving you the best in class, I can promise you that. It's less than average. If you want to get best in class, you need to tell them what you want. Get the facts, do the benchmarking, do your study. You go back to them and say, this is what we're looking for. A fact-based negotiation strategy. You tell them, well, I believe this is the market. I want 60% discount, not 45. You got B2B business, perfect. It's the best business you guys have. So you should not be taking average discounts. Too many people are way below the average here. And you know what that little bit costs? 5% is probably worth $5 million. A lot of people spend $50 to $100 million a year in all the auto manufacturers. It's too much money to waste to just do the simple RFP rounds of negotiation. Any questions on this so far? I'm moving pretty quick, okay? So here's what we do also. We take all that benchmarking and we would come back and say, okay, here's where the market is. Let's see how you did. We talked to a few of you yesterday. We're going to get your data this week. I'm doing this report card. Our team of former FedEx and UPS and DHL executives and the former pricing execs get the data. We're going to create this report. You can see how many boxes were ground commercial, not me ground residential compared to how many were import, export, 2-day, 3-day, what discounts you're getting, what is the average, remember this is the average, the chart we just showed you, and how much money per category you've left on the table, and get a report card. I rarely see an A+, I rarely see an A, I rarely see an A-. I see a lot of B- and Ds. Rarely, maybe 1 out of 100. We did this for, I think Pepsi Frito-Lay got an A recently, not too long ago. But so we look at a lot of these contracts, and when you get an A, that means there's still 5% opportunity. Think about it. If you're spending $100 million a year in the old school grade method, an A is 95%, or maybe 90% you get your A. Well, that's 5 or 10% opportunity. That's $5 or $10 million. So even A's are not good. You want A pluses on your contracts. It's too important. You need to be at the best in class. We'll tell you exactly what the savings are. So now if you knew there was 6.9 million savings, low-hanging fruit, just to be average, who's going to sit here and do nothing? I guarantee what you're going to do is you're going to go back and call your rep. You know how they're going to know that they're on a commission plan that protects that margin. But you have to go back to them and say, hey guys, I know my contract's up in 2 years, and every contract with FedEx UPS has a 30-day escape clause for either of you. You can cancel it, change it, so don't think you're stuck forever. A lot of people do addendums, changes all the time. If you've got a long-term contract and you're missing $6-7 million a year, as the owner of that company or the responsible for that P&L, I'd be changing that right away. So, and they're going to say, well, you have no options. Well, you got FedEx, you got UPS, you got DHL, Post Office, regional carriers like OnTrack, and a lot of other carriers. They know, and a lot of people are switching, by the way. But remember one thing, you're the most profitable business FedEx and UPS has. They don't want to lose you. You got to keep that in mind. They'll tell you, oh no, you got good rates, we can't do any better. You're the bread and butter of their profits. A lot of multiple boxes. So you've got the strength to negotiate. You just got to know that. Okay? So some internal improvements. This is what FedEx and UPS are doing internally. I'm going to just skip through this. I'm going to run out of time here. But let's see here. Things, they omit import discounts. They don't give you discounts for Alaska and Hawaii unless you ask for it. They don't never give it to you. You should always ask for these things. So there's a lot of things that you want to ask for, third party collect, a lot of stuff that they never put in your contract that are worth hundreds of thousands or millions. The people overlook this. They've waived money back guarantees, all these things. They take them away. That's worth 3 to 5%. Don't accept that in your contract. Now here's what I'm going to share with you right now. This is for the you need to develop a well-thought-out shipping routing guide policy. If you use multiple carriers like a regional, a FedEx, UPS, or LTL, you got to think thoroughly and make sure your teams follow those rules. Get your contracts, look at whether you're using regionals, national, maybe ground versus your overnight, have better discounts. You make sure people follow a well-thought-out routing guide. When we worked with Honda, we put together a very thorough routing guide for both the vendors shipping into them and outbound. So Honda didn't have that before we got involved. We said, why are you people just shipping however they want? I go, control your costs. And go through and develop a well-thought-out strategy so even you send a letter out to every vendor saying, our policy is you use FedEx Ground, we have a great discount, don't use your discounts anymore. I'm not paying full price. You can save millions by having a good inbound routing strategy for all your plants, all your facilities. It's a little bit of work, but easily done. So then multi-carrier strategy, multi-carrier shipping system, all these things are going to help you when you come to strategize and negotiate, because the carriers don't like you using multiple carriers. They know you can be more flexible. So we can share with all these ideas with you, but only fortunately I had a half an hour today. Ground commercial, this is a big one here. This one here, minimum charges. Say you got great discounts, but if you don't focus on this here, the minimum net charge, that means any box going to a zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, up to 20 pounds, they won't give you the full discount. Even if you've negotiated a 50% ground discount, unless you have a discount right here, you need to have a clause in here that says, I want $3 off or 50% off or a dollar or package. 50% of our people we help don't have this waiver. And you think you're getting 50% discount for all those zone 2 to 5. You don't. It's called the minimum charge, minimum language in your agreement. It's the biggest killer of a contract that's out there. Number one, look at this. My most important point to you is fix this thing right here. Second thing, in the auto industry, dimensional packaging is important review. A few years ago, it used to be length times width times height, and it gave you a weight, and that weight would be 5.8 pounds. Even though the box weighs 4 pounds, length with height divided by the 166 is 5.8. Now, they changed it recently, and they moved it to 139. Now, both FedEx and UPS did it on the exact same time. Now, this year, it's 139. So what does that do to you? The lower that number is, the worse it is for you. That same box, 10 times 8 times 12, divided by 139 now versus 166. And by the way, it was 194 a few years ago before that. So it went from 194 to 166 to 139. This is a hidden little rate increase. Look now, a 43% increase over the original weight. That box weighs 4 pounds. You have to round up 7 pounds. Every one of you are subject to this. Nobody's immune to it. But what can you do? You can negotiate that number right there. You say, you know something, we've been reviewing this. We're getting killed here. I don't want 139. I want 250. I want back to where it was, 184. The carriers do that. I have a lot of contracts in the auto industry where you get good discounts on that. So if you're worried about making your boxes smaller so you don't get this dimensional policy, making different dunnage and you make sure your boxes are tighter, more damage happens. So what I would do to help fight this problem is get a bigger number here. Then you could use a little bigger box and you're not going to get penalized for the dimensional penalties. So get a better number here, and it helps you in a lot of ways. Protects boxes better because you got more room to put more stuff in there. Okay, so and the other thing is not using outside help. You don't know what you don't know. Many of you have never even heard this stuff before. This is what we do every day in and out for 30 years. General Electric uses us. I've mentioned some of the auto companies like FCA and Honda, Toyota. We have some of the biggest auto companies use our expertise, and they got really good contracts. Some of the folks that don't are left in that lower field that you don't want to be. Don't be afraid to use help, okay? There's good available. Don't be able to work with, get former people who really know this stuff. And now here's some other things. Auditing your packages. This is probably one of the last few things I'm going to say. I might do Q&A here. But there's a lot of mistakes. The service levels right now for FedEx and UPS are at an all-time low. UPS is in the mid-90s for certain services. FedEx has been in the 80s. Hopefully they're getting better now. They used to be at 97 consistently. So and that's why they waive money-back guarantees. Too many people were getting all their package costs back. Use an auditor. We help people audit boxes, packages. We invoice audit. There's a lot of mistakes also, like right here. This is a big example. There's like 1% to 3% wrong with every bill you get from FedEx and UPS. They don't put the right discounts, the right fuel surcharge. They bill you twice. A lot of people think that you may use an auditor, but make sure you have a good auditor because this is free money. Electronically audit your packages. We help people with this every day, and we save them a lot of money. And also when you get an auditor, someone like us, so we can go through and use this data and give you reports every month and show you what's going on, trends. Hey, you guys aren't following your routing guides properly. You guys should be doing this. Why are you using that carrier? It's twice as much. Getting the data and having a good person help audit it and give reports is important to you guys to manage your business. Okay, was that a lot for half an hour? Because this is my last slide. So I'd like to go back, and if there's any questions, I can roll back to some of those. But remember, understand your shipping profile and network, know the carrier's margins, know they're having record profits. In 50 years, the most profitable years is last year. And you guys are getting these rate increases. What's going on here? So why are they doing that? Because they can. Because they have all the volume in the world. They're telling people, we don't want your business, but they're not telling you that. They're telling e-commerce shippers that. When you see in the Wall Street Journal, someone like, hey, this big shipper is being told, we don't want your business. It's not Honda, it's not you, it's not Toyota, it's not Ford. You guys are the bread and butter of FedEx and UPS. Keep that in mind when you negotiate. So my last slide, any questions, answers? First of all, was that helpful for folks? Is that good? Good. I could have used an hour, but I'll talk to the show people next year and we'll maybe get an hour.
Absolutely. Well, as you said, the devil is certainly in the detail. That's a lot of information there, fantastic insights and tips and strategies. So thank you very much to Mike. Round of applause for him, please.